everyone, and welcome to another episode of Superhero Sitters. Pet sitters open up about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happy pets. My name is Joshua Carey, co-founder of the Association of Pet Sitting Excellence, the APSE. In this series, we follow professional pet sitters who have stories to share that may sound heroic, but really were all just carried out without a second thought, and as we'll hear, all part of a day's work. Joining me today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Bella Vasta, who is the pack leader of Bella's House and Pet Sitting in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thanks for joining us, Bella.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
What were you doing right before you became a professional pet sitter?
Well, it kind of happened on accident, Josh. I was going to school at Arizona State University. I just transferred up from the University of Arizona, and I was living with my parents. I decided that pet sitting was an awesome way to get out and be able to have a little bit of freedom, but not necessarily be out on my own.
And how long has Bella's been up and running?
Since 2002.
Wow. Tell me what happened with your client and Luke.
Anne, the mom, was a long-term client of ours. We basically would go there Monday through Friday to walk Luke for her on a beautiful Indian reservation, actually. It was a wonderful dirt road where wild horses and all kinds of wildlife would be there and other people walking their dogs. So we'd come every morning to walk Luke, like clockwork, basically. And we got to become really close with both Luke and Anne. We also did the overnights and day visits for her when she went out of town for the weekends, and definitely a very strong member of the Bella's family, we call it. Luke was her prized possession, like the most important thing in her life. You know, like I'm sure many pet sitters can understand, you know, the pets are the babies, the pets are a part of the family. Sometimes they come even in front of husbands or wives. And Luke definitely was like that. So much so that Anne actually had a picture, a big portrait hanging over her fireplace. But he was over her fireplace with a red lipstick kiss on his forehead, which is a trademark signature she used to do every time she left him. I'll never forget the first time we actually pet sat for her, and I came over and Luke greeted me at the door, and he has this lipstick on his forehead. I just started chuckling, and it was just absolutely adorable. I asked her why her dog was over her fireplace instead of her children, and she simply said, "My dog's never asked me for money or to bail him out of jail." And at that moment, you know, I totally understood where Luke was in her life. So Luke was getting older. He just kind of started having minor health problems that became larger and larger, had some lumps removed, and ongoing trips to the vet. And he was just getting old. And she knew it, and she was doing everything to, you know, prolong the quality of his life, but also acknowledging that, you know, things were happening. So one day I was having lunch, and I got the call from her. I told her to call me, you know, if she ever needs anything, because going to see somebody every day, you get really close with them. So I told her to call me, and she did. And all I heard was, "Bella, it's time." And I said, "I'll be right there." So I got right in my car. I left lunch immediately. It usually takes me about 10, 15 minutes to get to her house from where I was, and I got there in record time. I walked in, and Luke was laying in the foyer, and Anne was over him, very distraught, holding tissues. You could tell she was been crying. And you could tell that Luke was starting the whole passing procedure, you know. He was panting, laying on the ground, had just, right before I got there, relieved himself all over the floor. And, you know, Anne's like, "We got to get him to the vet. We gotta get him over there." So we got a blanket. We moved Luke onto the blanket and picked up the blanket on either end, both of us, because obviously she couldn't move him. He was probably about 70 pounds or so, and she couldn't do it by herself. So she said, "Let's take my van." So I put Luke in the back of the van with her. She crawled into the back of her van as well, and I jumped into the driver's seat for her and proceeded to drive like an ambulance down one of the most busiest roads in our city. About halfway there, she said, "Bella, he's gone." And she just started crying, but he was in her lap and she was holding his head. So I let up on the gas, because obviously there wasn't a huge rush anymore. We got to the animal hospital safely. The attendant came out and got a stretcher, you know, to help us bring Luke in. We said our goodbyes. We said a prayer together. We prayed over Luke. And then right before they took his body away, she said there was one more thing to do. And she reached into her purse and grabbed the lipstick and gave him a kiss on the forehead. And we hugged and sat there for a while until she was ready to go. And then I drove her back in her car to her house because honestly she wasn't in the state to drive.
I love how just beautiful that lipstick trademark comes full circle and Luke gets to pass on with that eternal mark on his forehead.
Right. It was definitely very, very touching.
Was there anything that you and Luke loved to do together or that became your thing when you took him for walks?
Yeah. I used to say between his mom and him, he was the most saved or spiritually fed dog ever, because I used to listen to my praise and worship music, and there was no one around us, so I'd have my headphones on and he'd be walking in front of me and I'd be singing. So, and it was really beautiful because it was right on the end of the Indian reservation, so it's all the snoring desert, and it's right as like the sun's rising.
What I find so amazing is the more I talk to pet sitters, the more I realize that so many of us become family to the clients. We start off as a complete stranger, but time and time again we are brought in as family, and it's just an amazing thing. And this is no different, right? You were absolutely a family member.
Exactly. Yeah, we really are. I mean, we walk in and sometimes our clients are still in bed and we're walking into their bedroom, when they're still laying in bed and their pet's like still laying on the bed with them, and kind of creep in the morning and say, come on. And the dog gets up and goes because they know what we're there for. I mean, what other service provider do you know that walks into your bedroom when you're under the covers sleeping? It is a very personal thing that you naturally become connected with people.
Right. Now, what do you think the message is here?
The message is that because we're pet sitters, it doesn't just mean that you walk a dog and you scoop cat litter. It means that you've got to plan for the unplannable, like account for the uncountable. There is a definite amount of heart that you have to put into it, but there's also a boundary line, a healthy boundary line that you have to also draw.
What do you think would have happened if Anne didn't have you to rely on?
Well, I know for sure she couldn't get Luke in the car by herself. It's hard to say. The what-ifs are always hard. I mean, but I know it was definitely very comforting, and she does tell me numerous times how great it was that I was there, and she doesn't know she could have gotten through it without me, because we were so close, because we were so involved, because our relationship was so strong.
And what is your relationship like with Anne today?
It's still amazing, actually. Sometimes I go out for happy hour with her. She is just a wonderful, beautiful person. She waited, I think it was about a year, and then she ended up with another rescue lab named Gracie. So, we're still very connected.
Was there any charge on your part for running over and driving her with Luke to the vet?
Absolutely not. Our motto has become full service, one price, high quality. I don't believe in going back when life happens, whether it's instances like this or your pet's sick and they have to go to the vet while you're out of town, or there's a flood in your house. We don't charge extra for that, and it's my boundaries and my philosophy. I say that everything is included, and that's why.
Well, that is a beautiful business model, and it sounds like you really developed this incredible relationship with Luke and Anne, and that it is appreciated on all levels. And I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story and for speaking with us today.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.